So after the gameplay trailer of Darktide at the Game Awards, the hype train is in full swing. And I, for one, am not going to sit back and let that hype train end. But before I do, I have to talk about something very quickly. I was going to have a funny intro about some of the comments I got on my gameplay breakdown video, but the more I looked at it, I thought it does not get my point across. I've had a few comments saying too many women and why is the priest an Asian woman, and I was just disgusted by this. I mean, I for one am really happy with seeing a bigger push to have women characters in Warhammer games than just the hobby and the lore. I mean, Carillion and Sienna were brilliant characters in Vermintide, so I hate these cunts getting upset and pushing a narrative that all Warhammer fans are perceived as diversity-hating pricks. Anyway, rant over, let's get to the good stuff. So the Minstorum Priest is actually my favourite character shown out of our group so far, mainly because I want to shout, "Hold thy ground, sinners!" but she will be the character I main first in the game. Now, there's been a lot of confusion about what she actually is. Some people have said a priest, others have said a priestess, some people have said a princess, and others have said a sister of battle. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to call her a priest, but what is a Minstorum Priest? Why don't I just become a lore channel? I mean, this seems far easier. I mean, all I have to do is just go on the wiki and read out what it says there. The Adeptus Ministorum, more commonly known as the Elite Hierarchy, is the official state church of the Imperium of Man, which maintains and promotes the worship of the Emperor of Mankind as the one true God of humanity. Alright, I can't do it anymore. Minstorum priests are badass. They're usually on the front line screaming into some guardsman's ear, telling them to go 1v1 that Chaos Space Marine, and truly believes they can win in the name of the Emperor. They belong to the church that worships the Emperor, but these priests don't sit in church and are usually on the front line instead, giving motivational speeches to guardsmen. One thing that is quite funny is a lot of these priests will call anyone a sinner for anything they do. If you miss a shot of your lasgun, these priests will consider that you are sinning in the name of the Emperor and not doing his work. The Adeptus Ministorum has many different types of ranks and careers for a priest, one which could be what our character is in the trailer. This can be someone at the bottom as a preacher, who guardsmen may see regularly, all the way up to the Elisiarch, which is the highest priest of the cult. But this is where things get a little bit more interesting. There are also some special ranks and careers in the church that I feel our priests could be part of. Many of these come under serving an inquisitor, burning heretics, and fighting demons in the name of the Emperor. Now, there are a lot of these to choose from, and going off Vermintide 2, a character will usually get free for his or her careers. So just to name a few that I think we could be seeing for our character, we have Exorcist, Crusaders, Missionaries, Banishers, Iron Evangelist, Redemptionist, Incinerant Priests, and Prelate at Arms. Personally, I feel we might have a mix or a couple of matching with these careers, since a lot of these are very similar in their descriptions. So without boring you, I'm going to give a quick description of each of them, obviously so you don't fall asleep, but also so new people may understand what I mean, and then I'll choose 3 to make careers out of. Arch-exorcists are priests that get pissed off that inquisitors are the only ones able to fight demons in the Audio Malleus. They are fully aware that demons exist even though they shouldn't, and want to take it upon themselves to join inquisitors on the battlefield against the horrors of the warp. They make it their only job in life to find demons and get really excited when fighting one. Crusaders are your 40k knights. They are some of the most devoted members of the Adeptus Ministorum due to their deep faith in the Emperor, and they are no pushover in battle. Crusaders are some of the best warriors the church has to offer, and some would say on par with the Sisters of Battle. In full mastercrafted carapace armour, they make excellent bodyguards, and make it their purpose to be on the front line to take the forefront of the enemy's assault, and will even sacrifice themselves if the cause worthy enough. Inquisitors also have an eye for Crusaders. They use them as bodyguards, acolytes for missions, or just in need of knowledge and experience. Missionaries or Imperial servants go to lost regions of the galaxy or locations unknown to the Imperium as part of an expedition to be the voice of faith if they need to rekindle those who have not heard the Emperor's light in a long time. Probably unlikely though, as this is a hive city. Banishers are priests that study forbidden knowledge about demons, and this requires them to train their souls to resist the forces of chaos, and this is why many of them become an Inquisitor's acolyte at old age, due to it taking a lot of training and time to perfect this. Their bodies also show sacrifices of where they have made efforts to keep themselves pure in the Emperor's faith when training. Personally, I don't think our priest is a Banisher, but she does have scars which could be from the training, but no augmented limbs. Iron Evangelists are priests that are willing to spread the faith of the Emperor to anyone. And Inquisitors sometimes have use for these priests, as they are great at finding heresy that needs to be extinguished, especially in hive cities. Now obviously whilst we are fighting in a hive city, this is more for souls that can still be saved and have not turned into poxwalkers. Redemptionists are the crazy lunatic priests, and these are the ones that consider you a sinner if you spit on the floor. They also believe themselves are sinners, and the only way to redeem themselves is by running headstrong into the biggest enemy with a massive chainsword and either killing as many enemies as possible or dying themselves. This is what a Redemptionist would do. Obviously not wielding an eviscerator, but we'll talk about that later. Incinerant Priests are just as the name says. They are priests that like fire and take the phrase burn the heretic to a whole new level, obviously using flamers and burners as their preferred weapons. Once again, another career option that I feel we might be seeing because of the artwork, but we'll go into more detail later. Lastly, Prelate at Arms are some of the most inspirational and bravest priests. They are usually the ones that keep a guardsman's morale high if a commissar is not nearby when faced with the worst of demons and aliens. However, they have another trait that makes them especially cool. They prefer savage melee combat. They will go into berserk modes against the enemy, trying to spill as much of their blood as possible, and do not have any fear of death. Once again, you can see how these different priests tie in with each other, but this does sound something like our priest in the trailer would do. So out of those, I'm going to pick 3 to make careers out of, but first I have an honourable mention. So it seems someone on the forums has the same passion as me for creating characters and speculation, and I wanted to show some of the stuff Spaz has done. Interesting name. So Spaz has created speculation on a orc character concept for Darktide with careers, mechanics and lore, which is really cool with Commando and Stormboy careers, and also showing all the weapons an orc could be taking in the game. Spaz also previously did a Tech Priest character with lore and careers, which I really liked, as I've been playing a lot of Mechanicus recently, and I'm tempted to make a 30-minute in detail review on that game, and then with speculation for a second one. But he creates some really cool speculation for this character. But I also really like the lore that Spaz created of how one could end up in the Penal Legion with a Tech Priest using Necron weapons in a tomb to save his teammates and then gets branded as a heretic. But I can see Spaz put a lot of work into these, and I recommend people go check them out, which I will put links to in the description. Also, we don't know if a 5th character is confirmed at this point, so all speculation is on the table, and I love reading what people want to see in the game. Anyway, onto my first career for the priest. So this is Ida Cloisterman. Look, it was a Warhammer Fantasy Empire name and it sounded cool. But for a little lore on Ida, she is part of the Redemptionist cult, which sees everything and everyone as a sinner. And she had so much hatred for Xenos and aliens and demons that she wanted to find out the most effective way of fighting them. This resulted in her doing her own research into forbidden knowledge of the nature of demons, but without training. She managed to resist the powers of chaos when learning, but she has scars on her face showing where she has made a sacrifice to remain pure. However, she was discovered of looking into forbidden knowledge without being a member of the Collegia Exterminatis. She was branded as a heretic and to be killed. However, an Inquisitor saw the potential knowledge that Ida had gained and requested that she become an acolyte for them, but as a result of the knowledge that Ida had gained, her hate for Xenos and aliens and demons had made her mad with bloodlust and crazy due to her not having the proper training. I quite like that lore, and I'm really eager to know all of the backgrounds of our characters in game. So Ida, I believe, is going to be our Kruber of the group. She'll be very much a frontline tank, but with also some defensive support abilities and some aggressive playstyles. So for her passive ability, we have Faith is our armor. So one of the things I loved about the 9th edition Warhammer trailer was the showcase of faith in the Emperor will protect those who believe, and we saw this with the Sister of Battle being healed.
Faith is our armor. In battle, he offers us redemption.
It was one of the coolest things in the trailer, and I would love to see that in game form. So when Ida gets below half HP, she has a 50% chance to ignore all hits. So this is similar to Barden's passive ability ignoring a hit every 20 seconds, but a little different so it's not the same. This is making Ida a bit more of a frontline tank, allowing her to get stuck in more with the melee combat, knowing she has a chance to ignore a hit when below half HP. Now, Redemptionists at the end of the day rush into the enemy to kill sinners and repent their sins, hence the career skill, the Emperor's Judgment. Ida's light attacks become the equivalent of charge ones. A charge attack does even more damage with increased critical hit chance. So Redemptionists charge into combat swinging giant weapons, and I really wanted a career that reflected that. So this means with every swing, it's almost a guaranteed kill unless it's a boss. But this also ties really nicely in with her perk, Purge the Unclean. Heavy attacks can't be interrupted by damage attacks, and Cleansing, which increases attack speed by 10%. This is going to make her a monster in combat. The way you play her is you get below half HP, and then when a horde or boss comes, you will pop the Emperor's Judgment and just start killing everything in sight, as a true Redemptionist would do. She's obviously going to be a tanky, last standing character with the passive ability keeping her alive, but she's a hybrid boss and horde killer at most. So talking about hordes, we have our second career, the Incinerant Priest. Now there are two things that Fat Shark have done recently that I feel could make this career. Firstly, we have the Outcast Engineer with the Mark II crank gun as his career skill, and his passive as the reload. And we've also seen the Ogren using his gun as a melee weapon in the Darktide gameplay trailer. So if you take both of those ideas, you get the Incinerant Priest. Now starting with his career skill, we have the Master Crafted Flame Cartridge. So this is going to be a weapon you can use at any time, and it's just super powerful. It's basically the ultimate horde killer. This will burn Poxwalkers to a puddle, and will just allow you to get that proper Warhammer 40k flamer that you've always wanted. Obviously, one thing this weapon has also is an Eviscerator on the underneath, which allows the weapon to double up as a close combat weapon if needed. An Eviscerator is a massive two-handed chainsword, and whilst I do feel that it will be its own independent weapon for the Redemptionist, this one is combined to the Flamer. The passive ability, as you guessed, is Promethium Refill. Promethium is the fuel used in the Imperium, and the Incinerant Priest carries around these massive fuel tanks to ensure they don't run out. This functions very similar to the crank gun, holding reload pumps it into the gun and also cools down the cartridge. The weapon functions very similar to Sienna's staffs, which will overheat if not managed correctly, and could lead to it being disabled for a few seconds, but obviously if it does start to overheat or needs reloading, just use it as a melee weapon. But if you then combine that with her two perks, Burn the Heretic, increase range damage by 10%, and Kill the Mutant, the Eviscerator cleaves through more enemies, and this becomes the ultimate horde killer. And I feel that's a nice balance, as she won't be good against specials or bosses, but when it comes to hordes, this will be the go-to career. Now, whilst on the artwork the character holding the flame cartridge does not have a chainsword on the underneath, I'm praying that this weapon will still be in game at some point. We now move on to my favourite career, and if I had to put money down on one that I imagine would be in the game at some point, I would say the Crusader. A Crusader's role is based around two things: protecting his teammates at all costs and taking on the biggest enemy. So we first have Honor Guard. Getting hit causes a stacking stamina shield aura, which stacks 3 times and lasts for 5 seconds. So the way this works is if Ida gets hit, her teammates get stamina shields up to 3. And this first gives characters like the 2 guardsmen more protection, but also encourages the Crusader to be on the front line taking damage as a bodyguard. Crusaders also go through extreme training, and I mean extreme. They are trained to become the best of the best, which leads them to become bodyguards of high up priests in the church and also inquisitors. So martial perfection demonstrates this. Ida takes the battle to the unholy enemies of humanity, increasing dodge distance and dealing heavy damage. This allows the Crusader to almost dance around enemies and deal a huge amount of damage. Crusaders are also known for one other trait. They are the best at single combat and excel in 1v1 duels, and this is why I'm making the Crusader a special / boss killer. The first perk is Heroic Single Combat, similar to Coryllian's Dark Elf perk, that increases damage by 75% if in range of only one enemy. It's too OP, well I don't care. So this is a very situational perk. It's crap against hordes and most enemies, but if the Crusader finds herself 1v1ing a Chaos Warhound or a Plague Ogren, you will be demonstrating why Crusaders are the best in a 1v1 fight. If you then combine that with mastercrafted armor, can't be knocked back or down, which is basically when a giant enemy hits you and throws you back, that won't happen, and the best attack is a good defense with an extra stamina shield, the Crusader is the ultimate special and boss killer. You pop martial perfection when a boss is nearby and just start dancing around with that single combat perk causing huge damage. So those are my careers for the priest. I feel each of those offers enough diversity, but you may have other ideas than me. So let's talk about weapons. Starting with the Redemptionist Melee weapons, obviously the standard chainsword, but then we have the one-handed chain axe. Now, whilst chain axes are rarely seen other than heretics and chaos wielding them, they are still usable by loyal servants of the Imperium, but they are seen as bloodthirsty weapons. Obviously we have the power hammer, which we saw in the trailer, going to be caving in some skulls with that, but then we have the more juicy stuff, so an Inviscerator, a two-handed chainsword, 100% must be a weapon we get in the game. And then we also have the two-handed chain axe, once again favoured by the Heretic Astartes, but I feel it's a weapon that we could still be using, since it can be used by anyone. Lastly, we have the power axe, and I will say there's a good chance that these weapons are not all tied to one career and can be used by others, but obviously some will be locked like how they do it in Vermintide. So for ranged weapons, a lot of you pointed out in the trailer that the priest was using an auto gun, not a stub gun. The thing is, both of these weapons are very similar and do fall under the same automatic weapon name. Also, I'm going to say that some automatic guns don't even have names, but there are so many of them and stub guns that I could not get them all into this list. And one thing to also note is the fact that they did not give the priest a las gun tells me that she will be focusing around these old weapons and not the more up-to-date las gun stuff. So the first auto gun really resembles an M40, or the 40k equivalent of an M40. After that, we actually have the auto gun that our priest was using in the trailer, which I believe is the Mark II auto gun, but I'm probably wrong on that one, but it's a weapon that has been used by traitor guardsmen in the past. One thing to note is that since weapons have traits, I believe that how you customize your weapon traits reflects how your gun looks. I mean, we've seen flashlights, bayonets, gothic arch sights, and that's just the start. For example, an exterminator can be attached to las guns or auto guns, so I feel we might be seeing a lot of customizations like that in the game. The next weapon is another type of auto gun. I don't know the name for it, but it looks like an SMG. But after that, we have another type of auto gun that resembles a rifle. Definitely looks like one we could be seeing in the game. Obviously a heavy stubber. And lastly, an auto pistol. Once again, there are so many of these, and Necromunda I know has loads, but the best thing to say is that our priest will be the one fielding these sorts of weapons. So the Incinerant Priest obviously does not need a melee weapon due to her having an Eviscerator, but you could make the argument, so basically the same stuff as before. As for ranged weapons, I personally don't see her having anything else other than an Inferno pistol. We've seen this in Dawn of War 2, used by the Inquisitor, but I don't see the point when she has a bigger version. Lastly, for the Crusader, I imagine that she will have ranged weapons no different to the Redemptionist, or possibly not anything at all like the Slayer not being able to use ranged weapons. So for melee weapons, we of course have the power sword, light and fast, great at dealing with hordes, but we also have the power maul. So you can get power mauls man size. I mean, obviously you think of Terminators using them, which are giant, but there are smaller ones made for standard humans to use. But the power maul will be good against armor, unlike the sword. And lastly, we have the Storm Shield. There are a few different types of Storm Shield out there, but I imagine that since Fatshark have said customization is going to be a big part, that maybe choosing colour, shape and size may be all things we can do instead of having to have a new weapon added with stats. So those are my predictions for the Minstorum Priest. Obviously there are still two characters that I have not speculated about, being the two guardsmen, but I'm in one of these situations where I'm scared putting time into getting another one of these videos out and Fatshark releasing some new information. But I've got so many plans for videos for this channel, more speculation, review of Warhammer games, and some other funny stuff. But thanks for watching, and let me know what you think. Am I completely wrong on this one, and which character you're looking forward to playing the most? But anyway, bye.